She woke up slowly, not knowing where she was at first. The room was quiet, filled with a soft early morning light that slipped in through a small window. Her cheek rested against something warm and firm, rising and falling in a calm rhythm. For a few seconds she thought she was still dreaming. Then her senses caught up with her. She realized she was leaning against a bare chest, strong and steady. The warmth beneath her felt safe, almost protective. Her body stiffened slightly as the truth settled in. She was not alone. She lifted her head just a little, careful not to move too fast. That was when she saw his face. He was awake, his eyes open, looking toward the window. His expression was calm, thoughtful, and distant, as if he had been awake for a long time. Panic brushed her chest for a moment, then faded. He was not holding her tightly, not trapping her. His arm rested near her back, relaxed, leaving space for her to move if she wanted. That small detail eased her breathing more than she expected. She searched her memory, trying to understand how she ended up here. The night before came back in broken pieces. Long hours, heavy words, shared silence, and deep exhaustion. There had been no plan, no intention, only the need to rest after everything that had happened. She remembered how tired she had been, how the world felt too heavy to carry alone. He had offered a place to sit, then a blanket, then quiet company. At some point, sleep had taken her without warning, and now she was here, waking against him as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her heart beat faster as she wondered what he was thinking. Did he regret this moment? Did he feel awkward, annoyed, or uncomfortable? She studied his face carefully. There was no tension in his jaw, no sign of anger or unease, only a quiet awareness. He noticed her movement and slowly turned his head. Their eyes met for the first time that morning. There was no shock in his gaze, no rush to pull away, just a soft recognition. As if he had been expecting this moment, she felt her cheeks grow warm, embarrassed by how close they were. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again, unsure what to say. Words felt too loud for the fragile calm surrounding them. He spoke first, his voice low and gentle. He asked if she had slept well. Nothing more, no explanation, no pressure. That simple question grounded her, reminding her that this was not something dangerous or wrong, just a human moment. She nodded and answered softly. Her voice sounded smaller than usual, but honest. She shifted slightly, ready to move away if he wished. But he did not rush her. He adjusted his position just enough to give her space, without breaking the closeness completely. That restraint surprised her. In a world where people often crossed lines without thinking, his patience stood out. It made her feel respected rather than exposed. The quiet stretched between them, but it was not uncomfortable. She could hear his breathing, slow and steady, and it helped calm her thoughts. Outside, the day was beginning, birds calling faintly in the distance, life continuing as always. She realized that this moment would stay with her, no matter what happened next. The way she woke against his chest, the way he stayed still so she would not feel afraid, the way morning arrived without forcing them apart. She did not know yet what this connection meant, or where it might lead, but as she slowly sat up, carrying the warmth of that moment with her, she understood one thing clearly. Something had shifted inside her, and there was no going back to exactly how things were before. By the time the sun rose higher, both of them understood that what happened was not just about sleep or comfort. It was about who they were and where they came from, and how different their lives had been before crossing paths. He had grown up with rules that were not written on paper but lived inside him. Lessons passed down through stories, silence, and example. He believed that closeness carried meaning, that respect was shown through patience, not force. People around him knew him as quiet, steady, and serious. Someone who did not speak much but listened deeply. From a young age, he had learned to watch more than act, to understand the weight of his choices. Trust was not given easily in his world, and once given, it was protected carefully. That is why, even lying awake beside her, he kept his distance, guarding the moment instead of claiming it. She, on the other hand, came from a life shaped by movement and change. She had learned to survive by adapting, by reading rooms quickly, by trusting her instincts more than promises. Comfort was rare in her past, and safety often came with conditions. She was used to people asking questions she did not want to answer, or expecting more than she could give. That was why waking beside him felt confusing. There was no demand in the air, No silent expectation pressing against her chest, only calm. As she watched him that morning, she realized how different he was from anyone she had known. His stillness was not cold. It was thoughtful. His silence was not empty. It was full of care. He noticed the way she studied him, as if trying to place him into a story she already understood. He knew she came from somewhere far from his world, not just in distance but in experience. Still, he did not see her as an outsider in that moment. He saw her as someone tired, someone human, someone deserving of gentleness. He remembered the night before clearly, how her voice had grown quieter as the hours passed, how her strength faded into exhaustion. When she finally rested against him, it was not something he planned, but something he accepted with care. All through the night, he stayed awake longer than necessary, listening for her breathing, making sure she was comfortable. He did not move even when his arm grew numb, because he did not want to disturb her peace. Now, in the light of morning, he wondered what she would think when she fully understood where she was. He worried she might feel ashamed or regretful. He hoped she would see the moment as it truly was, simple, honest, and free of hidden meaning. She felt his awareness even when he did not look at her. It made her feel seen, not judged. That feeling was unfamiliar, and it unsettled her in a quiet way. She thought about how easily she trusted him, and that surprised her the most. Trust usually took time, mistakes, and proof. Yet here it had arrived quietly, without effort. As she sat beside him, gathering her thoughts, she realized that their worlds were different, but not broken, just shaped by different storms. They spoke again, carefully, choosing words that felt safe. He asked about her journey, not prying, just listening. She answered what she could, leaving the rest unsaid, and he did not push. That respect built something fragile but real between them, something that did not need promises or labels. She understood then that this part of the story was not about romance alone. It was about two people meeting without masks, even for a short time. When she finally stood up, adjusting the blanket around her shoulders, she felt stronger than she had the night before. Not because everything was fixed, but because someone had seen her without trying to change her. He watched her quietly, knowing that whatever came next would be shaped by honesty, not impulse. And as the morning continued, both carried the same thought in their hearts. Some moments do not need to last forever to matter. They only need to be real. The night before had not started with any clear direction. It had unfolded slowly, shaped by small moments and quiet decisions. The air was heavy with things left unsaid, and both of them carried their own weight into the evening. They had not planned to spend that much time together. At first it was just a shared space and a shared silence. Then came a few careful words, followed by longer pauses, the kind of pauses where thoughts settle and guards come down without anyone noticing. She had arrived tired in a way that sleep alone could not fix. Her body was exhausted, but her mind was louder, filled with memories she did not want to face alone. She tried to stay strong, as she always did, but the cracks were already there. He noticed before she said anything. He always noticed small changes, the way her shoulders dropped, the way her voice softened as the night went on. He did not interrupt or offer quick comfort. He simply stayed present, letting the silence do its work. At some point, the outside world faded, the sounds grew fewer, the light dimmed, and the space between them felt smaller, not because they moved closer on purpose, but because the walls between them slowly fell away. She spoke about her journey, not all of it, just enough to explain why she felt so worn down. Her words came carefully, as if she was afraid of saying too much. He listened without looking away, without checking time, without trying to fix anything. That was when something shifted. She realized she did not feel rushed or judged. The need to explain herself faded, and in its place came relief. As the night grew deeper, her strength faded. Her head felt heavy, her eyes burned, and her body leaned without thinking. She did not plan to rest against him. It simply happened, a quiet surrender to exhaustion. The moment surprised them both. He felt her weight settle gently against him, and instinct told him to stay still. He adjusted only enough to keep her comfortable, careful not to wake her or make her feel trapped. She breathed deeply within moments, the kind of sleep that comes only when the mind finally lets go. He stayed awake, staring into the darkness, aware of every small movement. Every breath she took reminded him of his responsibility. Time passed slowly, marked only by the steady rise and fall of her chest. His arm grew tired, his back stiff, but he did not move. Comfort was not something he took lightly, especially when it was given without asking. He thought about how easily moments like this could be misunderstood, how fragile trust could be. He chose patience over impulse, respect over desire. Outside, the night carried on as if nothing special was happening. The wind moved softly, distant sounds came and went. Inside, something quiet but meaningful was taking shape. She stirred once, shifting slightly, and for a brief moment he worried she might wake and feel startled. Instead, she relaxed again, settling more comfortably, as if she felt safe without knowing why. That feeling stayed with him. Safety. It was not something he could promise with words, but something he could offer through stillness. As the hours passed, his thoughts wandered. He wondered what morning would bring, whether she would regret this closeness or see it as it truly was, a shared moment born from honesty and exhaustion. He knew that whatever happened next had to be guided by care. The night had given them something fragile, and fragile things required patience. When the first hint of morning appeared, pale and quiet, he was still awake, still aware, still holding the same calm. The night had changed something, even if neither of them could yet name it. It had shown them that connection did not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it came softly, through shared silence, tired hearts, and the simple act of staying. He had been awake long before the light touched the edges of the room. The quiet hours before morning always felt heavier to him, filled with thoughts that had nowhere to go. Her head rested against his chest, her breathing slow and even, and he stayed perfectly still, as if any movement might break something fragile. He could feel the warmth of her through the thin fabric between them, steady and real. It reminded him that this was not a dream. This was a moment that required care, not confusion. In his world, closeness was never taken lightly. It carried meaning, responsibility, and respect. He had grown up learning that strength was not shown by taking, but by holding back, by knowing when not to move, when not to speak, when to simply remain present. So he stayed awake, listening, guarding the space between them. Her trust had not been spoken, but it was there, resting quietly against him. He understood that trust once broken could not be repaired easily, and he refused to be the reason for that. His thoughts drifted to the night before, how tired she had looked, not just in her body, but in her eyes. There was a kind of exhaustion that came from carrying too much alone for too long. He recognized it because he had carried it himself once. He remembered how she had tried to stay alert, how her words slowed, how silence wrapped around her like a shield. When she leaned against him, it had not felt planned or careless. It felt like surrender, the kind that comes when the body finally believes it is safe. That knowledge stayed with him as the hours passed. He adjusted his breathing to match hers, slow and calm, hoping it would keep her asleep. His arm ached slightly, but he ignored it. Pain was temporary, peace was not. From time to time, he glanced toward the window, watching the darkness thin. The world outside was changing quietly, just like the moment they were sharing. He wondered what she would feel when she woke. Confusion, embarrassment, maybe fear. He hoped she would not feel regret. He hoped she would see that nothing had been taken from her. He did not see her as someone to claim. He saw her as someone passing through his life at a moment when both of them needed stillness. As the light grew stronger, he became more aware of every detail, the soft rise of her shoulders, the faint sound of her breath, the way her hair brushed against his skin. He did not touch her more than necessary. Even his thoughts stayed careful. He believed that respect was something you showed even when no one was watching, especially then. A part of him worried that staying so close might already be too much, that the morning would bring distance and discomfort, but another part believed that honesty would guide them through whatever came next. He reminded himself that moments like this did not need explanations. They only needed integrity. When she shifted slightly, his body tensed for a brief second, ready to pull back if she woke suddenly. But she settled again, calm and unaware, trusting the space he held for her. That trust weighed more than words ever could. As the first sounds of morning reached the room, distant and faint, he felt a quiet resolve settle inside him. No matter what she decided when she woke, he would meet it with the same care he had shown through the night. He would not rush her, would not explain unless she asked, would not pretend the moment meant more or less than it truly did. For him, this part of the story was not about desire or possession. It was about choosing restraint, choosing to protect someone else's peace even when no one would know the difference. When the light finally touched her face, he looked away, giving her space before she even knew she needed it. He stayed awake, calm and steady, ready for the morning to unfold in its own time, knowing that whatever happened next would be shaped by how gently this moment had been held. As her awareness slowly returned, her thoughts came in pieces, not all at once. The warmth beneath her cheek was the first thing she noticed, followed by the steady rhythm of breathing. For a moment she stayed still, unsure whether moving would make the moment disappear or turn it into something awkward. She felt embarrassed, but not afraid. That difference mattered to her more than she could explain. In the past, waking up close to someone often came with tension or regret. This time it did not. Instead, there was a strange calm resting inside her chest. She wondered how long she had been sleeping like this, and whether he had moved at all. The idea that he might have stayed awake just to let her rest made her uncomfortable in a gentle way. Not because it was wrong, but because she was not used to that kind of care. Her mind started to ask questions. Why did this feel safe? Why did she not feel the need to pull away immediately? Why did her body feel relaxed instead of alert? She had learned long ago to wake up ready to defend herself, but this morning was different. She became aware of her own breathing, slower than usual, deeper. It surprised her. She had not slept like that in a long time. Real rest had been rare for her, usually interrupted by thoughts that refused to quiet down. She carefully shifted her weight, testing the moment, ready to apologize or explain if needed. But nothing changed suddenly. There was no sharp movement, no tension in his body, only the same steady calm. That was when she realized he was already awake. The thought made her cheeks warm. She felt exposed, even though nothing inappropriate had happened. Being seen in a moment of rest felt more personal than words. She wondered what he had been thinking while she slept, whether he had felt uncomfortable, bored, or trapped by the situation. The idea that he might have stayed still out of respect touched her in a place she usually kept guarded. She lifted her head slightly, her heart beating faster than before. Her eyes met his for just a second, and then she looked away again, unsure how long was too long. In that brief moment, she did not see judgment or expectation. She saw patience. That alone made her breathe easier. She thought about her life, how often she had been forced to explain herself, to justify her presence, to protect her space loudly. Here, none of that seemed necessary. The quiet did not demand anything from her. She realized that waking up like this had stirred something inside her. Not desire, not confusion, but awareness. Awareness that she had been carrying too much alone. Awareness that she had forgotten what gentle connection felt like. She felt a small wave of sadness pass through her. Not because of the moment, but because of how rare moments like this had been in her life. She sat up slowly, careful, and respectful, pulling the blanket closer around herself. Even as she created distance, she did not feel the need to rush away. Her thoughts stayed with the warmth she left behind, with the quiet care that had surrounded her while she slept. She knew this moment would not last forever, and that was okay. What mattered was how it made her feel about herself. For the first time in a long while, she did not feel like a burden or a problem to manage. She felt like a person who had been allowed to rest. She looked toward the window, letting the morning light touch her face. Her mind felt clearer, lighter, as if something heavy had been set down during the night. She knew there would be questions later, choices to make, and paths to decide between. But for now, she allowed herself to stay in this small pocket of calm. This part of the story was not about what came next. It was about what had already happened inside her. The quiet understanding that being cared for did not always come with a price. As she took a slow breath and prepared to speak, she carried that realization with her, knowing that no matter where life led her after this morning, she would remember how it felt to wake up without fear, without pressure, and without needing to explain herself to anyone. When the silence finally broke, it did not happen all at once. It happened gently, the way morning settles into a quiet room. Neither of them rushed to speak, because both understood that words could easily change the shape of the moment. She was the first to move her lips, but not the first to speak. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully, as if placing them too quickly might make everything feel awkward. Then she asked something simple, something safe, She asked if it was already morning. He answered calmly, his voice low and steady. He said the sun had been up for a little while. Nothing more, no explanation attached. His tone did not carry tension or expectation, and that made it easier for her to stay present. They sat there for a few seconds after that, both aware of how close they still were. Yet not uncomfortable, the quiet between them felt shared, not empty. She cleared her throat softly and thanked him. Not for the night, not for the closeness, but for letting her rest. The words surprised even her, because she meant them more deeply than they sounded. He nodded slowly, accepting her thanks without pride or discomfort. He said she looked like she needed it. His words were honest, not personal, and that balance mattered. That small exchange opened the door to more conversation. Still careful, still slow, they spoke about the night before, but only in pieces. Neither of them felt the need to explain everything. She apologized for falling asleep like that, saying she had not planned it. Her voice carried a hint of embarrassment, but not shame. He responded immediately, telling her there was nothing to apologize for. He said tired people rest, and that was all there was to it. The simplicity of his answer eased something tight inside her chest. They talked about ordinary things next, the weather, the early light, how quiet mornings felt different from nights. These small topics helped ground them, reminding them that life continued beyond this moment. As they spoke, she noticed how he listened. He did not interrupt or rush her. He waited until she finished before answering. That patience made her feel heard in a way she was not used to. She shared a little more about her journey, still keeping some things private. He did not push for details, he only nodded, acknowledging what she chose to give. At one point, their eyes met again. This time longer, steadier. There was no tension in the look, no promise either, just understanding. She realized then that this conversation was important, not because of what they were saying, but because of how they were saying it. There was honesty without pressure, closeness without expectation. He spoke about responsibility, not directly about them, but about life, about how moments mattered and how people should be treated with care. His words were calm, but they carried weight. She listened closely, sensing that these were not just thoughts, but values he lived by. It made her feel safe in a way that was quiet but strong. As the conversation continued, the awkwardness she had feared never arrived. Instead, it slowly faded into something comfortable, something human. She laughed softly at one point, surprised by herself. The sound felt unfamiliar after such a heavy night. He smiled in response, not wide, but real. That small exchange changed the air between them. It reminded both of them that connection did not always have to be serious to be meaningful. Eventually, she mentioned that she should get ready to leave. The words felt necessary, even if she was not fully ready to say them. He accepted that without resistance, saying he understood. He did not try to hold the moment longer than it wanted to stay. As she stood up, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders one last time, she felt grounded, not rushed away. This part of the story was not about confession or decision. It was about two people choosing honesty and respect in a moment that could have easily gone wrong. They both understood that whatever came next would be shaped by how this conversation had unfolded, calm, careful, and real. When the time came to decide what to do next, neither of them said it out loud at first. The moment carried weight, not because it demanded a dramatic choice, but because it invited honesty. She stood near the window, the morning light resting on her face, thinking about the road ahead. Her life had taught her to keep moving, to avoid staying in places where questions grew heavy. Yet this time felt different. He watched quietly, not wanting to influence her thoughts. He believed that choices meant more when they were made freely, without pressure or persuasion. She broke the silence by saying that moments like this often faded once daylight took over. Her words were careful, not sad, not hopeful, just real. He nodded, agreeing. He said that not every meaningful moment was meant to turn into a story with a clear ending. Some were simply meant to be carried forward quietly. That honesty surprised her. She had expected questions or expectations, or at least curiosity about where this could lead. Instead, he offered her freedom. She admitted that part of her wanted to stay not out of obligation, but because she felt understood here. She also admitted that another part of her was afraid of staying too long, afraid of building something she might not know how to keep. He listened without interrupting, allowing her to say everything at her own pace. When she finished, he said that both feelings made sense, that wanting connection and fearing it often arrive together. They spoke about distance, not just physical distance but emotional distance. He shared that he had learned to move slowly, to let trust grow instead of forcing it. She considered his words, realizing how often she had rushed decisions in the past, either toward people or away from them. This moment asked her to pause instead. She asked him what he wanted. The question felt heavy, but necessary. He took a moment before answering. He said he wanted whatever came next, to be honest. He did not want promises made out of comfort or fear. He wanted choices made with clear minds. That answer relieved her. It removed the pressure she had been bracing for. They agreed that there was no need to decide everything in one morning. That understanding allowed them both to breathe easier. She gathered her things slowly, not rushing, allowing the moment to settle naturally. He helped in small ways, offering water, pointing out the time, practical gestures that felt grounding. As she prepared to leave, she turned back to him, unsure whether to say goodbye or something more open. She chose honesty. She said she was glad the night had happened exactly as it did. He replied that he was too. His voice carried no regret, only calm certainty. They shared a quiet pause. Not awkward, not heavy, just present. When she finally stepped toward the door, she felt different from the person who had arrived the night before. Not because everything had changed, but because something inside her had settled. He watched her leave, knowing that this choice, to let the moment remain open, was as important as any decision to hold on. This part of the story was about trust, not the kind that demands guarantees, but the kind that allows people to walk their own paths without resentment. As the door closed softly behind her, both carried the same quiet understanding. Some connections do not ask to be defined right away. They ask only to be respected. The memory stayed with her long after she walked away, not as something heavy, but as something gentle she carried inside. It returned to her in quiet moments, when the world slowed down and her thoughts had room to breathe. She did not replay the morning the way people replay regrets. She replayed it the way people remember calm places, the warmth, the silence, the way nothing was asked of her. As she continued her journey, life returned to its usual rhythm, noise, movement, responsibilities. Yet something inside her had changed. She noticed it in small ways, the way she breathed a little deeper, the way she paused before reacting, the way she allowed herself to rest without guilt. That morning became a reminder that care did not always come with conditions, that closeness did not always mean loss of control, that respect could exist quietly, without needing to be announced. For him, the memory stayed too, woven into his days without demanding attention. He did not speak of it to anyone, not because it was a secret, but because it felt complete on its own. He carried it as proof of something he had always believed, that strength could be gentle, that doing the right thing did not always bring visible reward, but it mattered all the same. Sometimes, when the mornings were quiet and the air felt still, he thought of her waking beside him, not with longing, but with respect. He hoped she was well, wherever she was. Their lives moved forward on separate paths, shaped by responsibilities and choices that could not be ignored. Yet the connection they shared did not disappear. It simply settled into memory, calm and intact. She found herself thinking differently about people after that. She became more patient, more willing to listen, more aware of how small actions could carry great meaning. She no longer rushed to define every connection. She allowed moments to exist without forcing them into stories they were not meant to become. That one morning taught her that not everything needed an ending or a beginning. Some things simply needed to be honored for what they were. He, too, noticed a quiet shift within himself. He trusted his instincts more, trusted that choosing respect over impulse was never a mistake. The world continued, busy and demanding, but both of them carried a softer center within. Years from now, the details might fade, the exact words spoken, the way the light fell across the room, but the feeling would remain. The feeling of safety, the feeling of being seen without being claimed, the feeling of a moment held with care. And that was enough. This part of the story was never meant to be loud or dramatic. It was meant to be real. Two people crossed paths at the right moment, offered each other something simple and rare, and then continued on, changed in ways only they could fully understand. Some stories do not end with promises or reunions. Some end with quiet growth. And in that quiet, both of them found something lasting. A reminder that even brief moments, when handled with honesty and respect, can leave a mark that time does not erase.